Well, I guess it makes sense that our birds are chirping because I am about to try and rewatch a nature movie. That's right, I'm about to try and rewatch Avatar for the first time after all these years. And yeah, to be honest, I'm not really looking forward to it. I was not a fan of this movie when it came out. I think I only saw it in theaters. Just the one time. I never saw it again, I think, after that. I am not a fan of this movie. I know now people are like, oh, I never liked Avatar, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no, I legitimately did not care for this movie originally. But with the new film coming out, I thought maybe I should watch it again. Also, maybe I should give it a second glance, try to not see what I saw before in it, because I was biased against it for a couple reasons, just things I heard that had nothing to do with the movie. But I just have a bad feeling about rewatching this movie. But I'm going to try and go in and rewatch it again after all these years, like I said, and maybe I'll feel differently. Hopefully I'll feel differently. But whatever it is, I will let you know. And who knows, maybe it'll take me 2 days to watch this movie. But whatever the case, I will rewatch this and tell you what I think about it now. I'll see you then. Well, I'm eating my words. I mean, I still don't think this movie deserves all the praise it gets. I still think it's not a fantastic movie. It's very preachy when you look at that stuff. The visuals, though, are amazing, and they are fantastic, what they were able to do. The story, when you don't focus on the preachy stuff that they want to talk about, there's a lot of good stuff there. But it's still just not my type of movie. It's far too long for one thing, which we'll talk about. And I still have, I admit, a bias against it a little bit because it came out when Iron Man did. And I heard somebody say it was better than Iron Man, which I'm sorry, but I like Iron Man more. Stuff that happened at the Oscars, just kind of, I'm like, why did you have to bring that up? And then, of course, it beat out Endgame again. So yes, I'm biased against it because I like other things more. That's not to say that I don't think it's a good movie. As I've rewatched it in one sitting, if I didn't mention that, there's a lot to like about this movie, but it's still not fantastic. So let's dive in to Avatar in this edition of Retro Reviews. So let's start with the story itself. Yes, this is Dances with Wolves, as people have said. It's about a guy who's sent on a mission to do one thing to an indigenous people and ends up learning that they're in the right and his side is in the wrong ultimately. At least that's what this story is, and I don't think I've ever watched Dances with Wolves at least the whole way through, where I did many, many years ago, so I can't remember exactly what happens there. But that's pretty clear from the very beginning because we're introduced to the military. First thing we see is the military. And clearly they are destroying this world. It's bleak. It's like in a grayscale, the cinematography. And it's just clear from the very beginning that these are going to be the bad guys. There is so much setup for this idea of the military and what they want to do and how they're taking advantage of this world, and they're not there to embrace the indigenous, and they're pushing Sigourney Weaver's character and her studies away because they just want to do the quick, easy thing, and that's either push them out or eliminate them. But that's the crust of the story, and you get that right away. But what's interesting is once you enter the labs, there's a little bit more color to it. It's kind of in the middle. There's still that grayscale, but you add some more white to it. You add some texture, some blue, and it really just comes alive a little bit because this is the more colorful, the more accepting part of why they're all there. This is the area that's trying to coexist with the Na'vi trying to embrace them, trying to learn their ways. So therefore, it's a little more colorful, and you get that from the very beginning. This is the stuff that most people choose to look at. They want to focus on how it's talking about nature, embracing nature, and, you know, learning to live with it, and talk about all the injustices that we did to the Native Americans, which I'm not saying we didn't do stuff we shouldn't have done. I'm not saying that. But that is the focus. It seems like at the beginning that it's trying to push. When it comes to these types of lessons, I prefer that a movie or a TV show be more subtle with it. Don't push it in my face. Like, don't hold up a cue card and say, see, this is what we want you to learn. Do you know what this is what we want you to learn? Do you see it? I'm shaking you. Do you understand? I prefer it to be more subtle, so that if I pick up on it, great. If I don't, that's too bad, but at least I'm enjoying the movie, hopefully. That to me is what makes a really good movie a really good movie, where you have subtext that isn't in your face, but if you can tell it's there, great. If not, well, you might be missing out, but hopefully you're enjoying the film. Rewatching this film, though, I tried not to focus on that environmental part of the film, because I really just did not want to see that. I wanted there to be more to this movie than just that. And there is. This is a movie about a man's journey of discovery, and a discovery of his real self-worth. The army saw him as a cripple. Then he thought he could be useful, and the person in charge there, Sigourney Weaver, saw him as someone that was forced on her, just totally useless, didn't want him there. The Na'vi, yeah, they didn't exactly embrace him, but they embraced him more than his own people did. Slowly, though. They still didn't trust him. But that's how we see his progression from not really being worth anything, or so he thinks, to his kind, to his race, but realizing there's so much more to him than what he thinks there is. That his injury isn't a cripple. It's just another challenge to overcome. It's a story, like I said, about finding your place, accepting all of yourself, standing up for your beliefs, and as they say in the movie, they directly say, I see you. That is one of their key elements. It's one of their things that basically establishes a relationship. It establishes that the Na'vi fully understand. It's like a spiritual link, I'd like to say. It's, I see you for who you are. I don't see you for what you look like, for the things you've done. I see you for who you are on the inside. And if I'm being honest, I do wish some people would look at me that way. Because, really briefly, I mean, look, I'm wearing a Deadpool shirt. I've got tons and tons of nerdy shirts. I've got movie-related shirts. in all my videos, you get glimpses of what's in what I've got. And sometimes that's what people see. So the idea that somebody can say, I see you, and that would mean they see the nerdy stuff in me, but they see that I'm a good human being trying to do what needs to be done for my family, trying to do everything that I can to help those around me. That would be really nice sometimes. I know people do, but it's not always evident. This story is the one that I mentioned in my Jurassic Park review, that it doesn't do a good job when it comes to introducing the characters. It takes approximately 40 minutes before we're actually introduced to Zoe Saldana's character, when we're actually introduced to the Na'vi, when we start to see them for the first time. And that's just too long. I mean, maybe in the total runtime of the film, it's not that long. But they should have introduced them sooner. That way we could have understood them and maybe come to appreciate them more earlier. Also, there are so many scenes in this movie that just feel long. Yes, they're meant to have an impact. Yes, they're meant to tug at your heartstrings. But I feel like at times it just lasts too long. It's like, okay, we get it. Let's move on. Other times, you could change these things if you gave a little more explanation to stuff, to what's going on, instead of just focusing the camera and showing us. You know, maybe it's better to show instead of tell, as some people say. But sometimes, especially with this, you can say a lot in a lot less amount of time. There are other moments where we get to see more of Pandora, and it feels like all Cameron's trying to do is say, hey, look at me. I am the master of technology. Look at what I can do. Look at the amazing worlds I can create. Wouldn't you love to be me? All hail James Cameron, God here. Yeah, I'm sorry, Cameron. You did great work. But when that's what you want people to see, and you miss out on some of the story, what does it really accomplish? Sure, you'll get noticed for the visuals, which are amazing, but there's more to it than just trying to boost your own ego, which I feel like is what he's trying to do with this movie and the 3 or 4 sequels that we are supposed to get. I mean, it's been over 10 years since this first movie was released, and he's been putting all his efforts into it. Overall, I feel like this 2.5 hour movie, I think it is maybe 2 hours and 40 minutes, could be tightened up. It could be told in a lot less amount of time, or if you wanted it to be longer, you need to do more with it. There's other things you could have done to maybe build up how much we should care about these characters. I mean, yeah, we care about them, but maybe you could have done some other things to make us care even more. My last comment when it comes to the story, so many movies put the military or the government or what have you as the bad guys. I'm not trying to get political with that, but it would be nice. I feel that it would be nice if we got some other movies, newer movies, that if you want to tell these stories, maybe you don't make the military the bad guy all the time. And yeah, we've gotten them. We've got some historical ones that have come out. We've got movies, like I think like Saving Private Ryan's one. You got Hacksaw Ridge. Sorry, couldn't talk. These are movies that might not necessarily celebrate the military, but they celebrate personnel in the military. Independence Day, another one that is just a fun action movie, but the military is not the bad guy. They're trying to save us from who's truly evil, at least according to that movie. So, with every story, you got characters. So let's look at how the characters affect the story, and if they hold up to this day, or if they could have been better. So I ended that last segment talking about the military and them being the villains. Well, let's start with the villains. And those come in the form of Stephen Lang and Giovanni Ribisi. I know I'm saying that wrong, but I apologize. And these guys are the clear villains of the story. Biggest problem, they have no arc. There's no arc for these characters. And every good villain has an arc. I'm just going to use Marvel as an example because they're the movies I love. You got Loki. He's become an anti-hero. You've got Killmonger. He has a good arc. He's a good villain. He has a reason. You understand his cause. He's sympathetic. And it seems like this that make movie villains good. Or if they're just really diabolical and funny, or, you know, just kind of crazy, like, I forget the guy's name. Everybody here's probably going to be shouting at me from Die Hard. He's a fun guy. Vader, one of the greatest, if not the greatest villain of all time. Those original movies, yeah, he was just evil and he was great and he was just a fun character. But from the prequels, which I do like, you see his evolution to that character. And with the Obi-Wan series now, you get more of Anakin's evolution to Vader. So there's more stuff to him, and at times you can feel sympathetic for him in those early days. These guys, you get none of that. You don't care. You want these guys gone. Only Giovanni, I will say, kind of has an arc, because he kind of doesn't want to get rid of them. He just wants what's under their tree. And you can kind of see him have a little regret when he totally destroys it. But it's not enough to save him as a character. And it's not enough to make a great villain out of him. Then let's go to Sigourney Weaver. Her arc is really revolving around Jake. And accepting that Jake is more than she originally thought. She thought he was just another meathead. Just another guy thrown her way who couldn't do anything. Well, he ends up being the best thing that ever happened to her. So she does go on this arc slightly. She, from the very beginning, does love the Na'vi. That's why she's there. She's there to study them. She wants to try and protect them. She wants to learn about them. So that's who she is. And she's that for pretty much the entire movie. Her arc, like I said, comes in the form of how she deals with Jake and learning just how good of a person he actually is and how good he actually wants to be. I forgot to mention, when talking about Sigourney Weaver and her character, she seems to feel like she's much more comfortable in her avatar body than she is in her normal human body. Pretty much the same way Jake is, though Jake has a reason for liking it more because he can walk again, he can run, he can do all this. But she also just feels like she's more comfortable in that body. It's kind of an interesting idea. And it does kind of raise the question, why is that? Is there something about her past that we don't know, that they haven't told us? That could have been an interesting little thing to add to the movie. You take maybe 3 minutes to throw in a hint about her past, or unless there's one in there that I just didn't see. But you throw in a little tidbit and you get rid of 3 minutes of total destruction or whatever. Maybe take a little bit out of the battle. And you add to her character. We understand her more. But I feel like as I was thinking about it, I think there's something in her past that she's not telling us. Because she sure as heck feels a lot better in her avatar body than in her human body. Now moving on, I like to say there's comedic relief in every film. Horror, drama, it doesn't matter. There's always a comic relief character to a certain extent. And you need the comedy to even out the sadness or the frights or the romance. You need comedy to kind of give people a break. And in this movie, you got Joel Moore and his character. You got this bright-eyed scientist, this young up-and-coming guy who is just so excited to be on Pandora. He's really looking forward to studying it, to getting a chance to really stretch those avatar legs. And it just seems like it's a joy for him. He loves being there. Yes, it's a job, but it's also an adventure for him. And again, he really doesn't have much growth through the film. He does accept Jake more. He fights on the side of the Na'vi when the battle comes at the end. But it really feels like he doesn't change too much, except maybe, like I said, in those points, or he accepts the Na'vi way of life more than most people, or more than he expected. But I really feel like he is primarily the comedic relief, but at the same time, he also is Jake's teacher when it comes to certain things. And he's Jake's friend who helps guide him in the beginning, especially. So yes, he serves a purpose, and he serves that purpose well. But there's just something missing from him. He's just another character. I feel that he's great for what he does. He does what he needs to do. But when it's all said and done, he's primarily the comedic relief for this film. And then we have Michelle Rodriguez, her Trudy. And I like her character. I do. I thought it was a very interesting character. I liked seeing her every time she showed up. She was having a lot of fun, clearly. I like how she says her helicopter, her spaceship, whatever you want to call it, how that is her baby. And I love what she does with it at the end. But the one thing I will say about her character is it does seem like she changes sides really, really quickly at the end, especially. Now, maybe we can look at that and say, well, she was going that way. We just didn't see where it starts to happen. Or we're seeing at the beginning of the movie how her views are starting to change from being stone cold soldier to being a soldier scientist, embracing this world. Maybe that's what we're seeing, and we didn't fully see what she's like early on. Again, I feel like that's another missed opportunity. The biggest problem I have with her character is when she abandons the military on their attack on the tree. I don't have a problem with her abandoning everyone. That's fine. Though, I guess in real life it wouldn't be, but for the movie, it's good. My problem comes that it seems like nobody realizes that. It's almost like they don't realize that she abandoned her post. I mean, she had a gunner. Didn't the gunner say something? Because she comes back and she ends up releasing everyone from prison. And there's no questioning her. Like, okay, what happened? Did nobody notice that she did this? But I do like her character. I think she's a good addition. I'm going to say she's the more realistic character when it comes to the idea of switching sides. Because, let's be honest, the scientists, they end up changing sides because they've studied the culture. They're there to learn about the Na'vi. And so they've already kind of embraced the whole idea. I mean, they have avatars, for goodness sakes. Jake, who we'll get to later, yeah, he has a whole story about it. She's the one that it feels she has the most to lose by embracing the Na'vi side of things. So it feels like she's the one that we could relate to more because we don't have an avatar body and we can't experience it like that, but we can experience what she did. A change in belief, a forced perspective change, if you will. Then we come to the Na'vi themselves. Honestly, we really don't get to know the Na'vi that much. I mean, correction. We get to learn about their culture. We do learn about them becoming one with the animals and their connection to the trees and their beliefs. But I feel like we don't get to know many characters outside of just... I can't remember her name right now. I'll probably think of it later. Outside of Zoe Saldana's character, outside of her Na'vi character, we don't really get to know the other ones that much. Now, there is an exception to this rule, and that's the head guy, I guess you could call chief, the medicine woman. We get to understand her a little bit. And then Tuesday, I think. I don't know if that's her brother or the person she's supposed to get married to. I really couldn't figure that out. Those three we do get to know better than the others, with Tuesday being the one we really get to know because he is the direct opposite of Zoe Saldana. I might have missed something because I didn't fully understand the whole reason that the Na'vi trust Sam Worthington's character, Jake. Because something happens, and I guess it's explained somewhere, but the whole spirit thing with the tree or something, I can't even explain it because I'm not sure what they were talking about. So that's not great with the storytelling, but it helps move our primary characters with Jake and Zoe Saldana as Natiti, I believe that's how you say it, helps them come together and helps move the primary story forward as far as I'm concerned. Because when you push all the stuff about culture, when you push all the stuff about the ecosystems or nature, when you push all that aside, it's really about these two characters because they have similar pasts. They're both different from their clan in some way. I mean, it might not be evident with Natiti. Again, I'm sorry if I keep butchering the name, but that's how I'm gonna say it. It's not exactly clear, but it seems like she's different than the rest of them. Just with the way she embraces Jake, just with her ideals. And this would have been a great point, like I mentioned many times, where we should have met the Na'vi earlier, so we could have gotten to know these characters more and maybe understood why they did or why they do the things they do. Her character to me is kind of like the first thing that came to my mind was Pocahontas. You know, how, at least when it came to the Disney version, which I know is not historically accurate, that she was the outsider. She wanted to run free and she wanted to just have all these adventures, and she didn't want to stay put. I feel like that's Zoe Saldana's character here. Though we could have gotten more from her, we could have gotten more of an explanation from somewhere in the film, whether it be early on or from the chief, who I believe they say is her father. It's the same with Jake. He's the outsider from, let's just say, the human race, because he's a cripple. And they all just see him as somebody that can be used or somebody who is useless. Either way, both Jake and Natiti are outsiders, I believe. They are different, they think different than their clan, shall we say. Then they're forced into a role of responsibility. Jake is forced into the Avatar body, forced to work with the scientists and to guard them, and then after that he's forced to deal with the Na'vi, which at first he doesn't really want to do. He's pressured by the general into providing him with information to do whatever they need to do, though in his eyes he'd probably like to just kill him, obviously. And Natiti is forced to be Jake's guide, basically, through the culture. And it's clear at first that she does not want to do it because she gets into an argument about it. So that's another path they go down. They learn about each other. We never really see Natiti learn about humans, but I feel like it's another one of those stories where as you learn from one person, they're learning from you. I feel like there's a back and forth here because Jake doesn't necessarily know the Na'vi language. I feel like Natiti doesn't really know the English language or the human language that well. So they're learning about that. And even ultimately, when bad things go down, Natiti's learning about the good side of humans as well as the bad, seeing that not all humans are evil. Not all humans should be destroyed or are out to take their land, shall we say. They also both have a falling out in the movie. Jake has a falling out with the command, with the scientists. He has a falling out with the Na'vi because they learned that he betrayed them as well, what he was really there to do. He has a falling out with Natiti, sorry, I can't say that name. And she has a falling out with Jake, obviously. But she also seems to have a falling out with the Na'vi throughout, because she's embracing Jake more and more as the movie goes along, until the very end where everyone embraces him, at least when it comes to the Na'vi. And finally, they both reunite. They have a coming together to save their home, save their world. So they have a very similar path. And by the end of the movie, they both realize who they are. They find out what they believe in, who they truly are. And as they say, they ultimately see each other. Like I said, it does feel like we're missing a key part when it comes to Ntiti's story. Would have been nice to maybe pull back on some of the other scenes and get more of that. But again, it might be one of those things where you're just supposed to imply it from the subtext, which, like I said, I think other things should have been done in subtext. I've compared this movie to a couple things. This story, which I feel is the real heart and the real story here, is between Jake and Ntiti. That's the real story. And that makes me feel like this is a Romeo and Juliet story. There's a lot of similarities here. They share a lot of things. There are some things that are different, obviously. And by the end, though, you can say, and spoiler for the very end of the film if you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it within the past 10 years or 11 years since it came out, you probably don't care, that Jake, in essence, does die. He even says, it's my birthday, because his human body dies with Ntiti in his arms, with him in her arms, only to be transferred to the Avatar body full time. So there is a lot of Romeo and Juliet in this movie. When you solely think about just these two characters, like I said, it makes the movie a whole lot better. And finally, but certainly not least, the major thing is the visuals. I can't say anything about these visuals that hasn't already been said before. They are amazing. They are fantastic. A lot of it's groundbreaking. And that's honestly why you want to see this movie. That's like the reason to see this movie, is just for how amazing it looks. The camera shots, getting to see all of Pandora. It's really, really cool. And the music helps with that. The score just makes it so... I can't even think of the words right now. Like, it really feeds into the imagination and just the ideas of all of this world out there, these creatures. It's great. But here's the thing. Yes, there are animals in our world, I'm sure, that we have no idea exist, like at the bottom of the ocean or in the Amazon somewhere. But while these creatures might have elements that you can notice from Earth creatures, as they've talked about in behind the scenes featurettes, I feel like that also pulls you out of the film. I feel like it helps, to a certain degree, it helps you to remember this is still a movie. It's still just a story. And it actually helps you just look at it that way. But by the same token, if you do recognize the elements, maybe you can relate them to creatures on Earth. If you really wanted people to connect with the creatures, maybe you should have done more earthly type creatures and tweak them a little bit. It just, when you make them so much otherworldly, they're great. But I feel like sometimes you have a hard time connecting that with what's real. Or maybe I'm totally off and that's just my own thoughts. And this all comes back to the environmental preservation idea. You want people to relate to these animals. You want people to learn a lesson about preserving our environment. But sometimes you gotta look at it simply. Some people are just stupid. A lot of people are just stupid, and they're not going to take the deeper meaning behind the animals. I mean, I know I didn't. Not the first time I saw the movie. So you gotta You need to make it, you can make it grand and all this great stuff, but you also have to make sure that there's something there for the lowest common denominator. You don't dumb it down to the point of, okay, well, you know, that looks like a rhino from my home planet of Earth. You don't have to do that. But sometimes if you want a mass audience to really understand this movie, you have to include something for everyone, including the people that might just go to the movie just to see the movie and not necessarily for all the lessons or the hyperboles or the figurative stuff that you want them to. Now, I'm not a scientist. Maybe there are creatures like this on the planet. Maybe they do exist somewhere that I just don't know about. If that's the case, mention it down below and I apologize. But I'm just going off what I know. Everything else, cinematography, like I said, is fantastic. The shots, the visuals, like I said, that is what you go and you see Avatar for. So, all in all, what do I think about this movie? Yeah, it's good. I admit it's better than I remember. Still don't love it. Probably will be another 10 years before I ever watch it again. But it just reminds me how biased I was against it. And it reminds me that when I first saw it, I wasn't so much in the mindset of just watching a movie for a movie's sake. Or, you know, just trying to find something to enjoy, which I try to do that with every movie now. You know, just try to watch it for what it is. And it still stands up. Oh, it definitely holds up to this day. It's one of the masterpieces when it comes to visuals. And the story has definitely grown on me. Like I said, when you look past the lessons it's trying to teach, when you look past trying to just focus on environmentalist stuff, and you look at the character story, it's great. It's really, really good. Definitely, like I said, could have shortened it a little bit. That would have been really, really nice. And, you know, maybe let us learn a little bit more about some of the other characters instead of just making us assume stuff. Because who knows, maybe we're wrong. Or maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, it definitely holds up. It's only 10 years old, but yeah, you still could do leaps and bounds in 10 years. We'll see what Avatar: The Way of Water is like. But I'm not seeing that on the first weekend. I'll let you all know that right now. So where would I rank this movie? That's really hard for me. Because if I'm looking at it from a visual perspective and just advancements, then I'd have to say Mentor, because the advancements it did because of it, the technology we have because of it, is fantastic, and that's great, and that deserves to be praised. But if I look at how much I actually like the movie, if I want to watch it again and again, no, then I have to go, I probably have to go Sidekick, because I acknowledge all the good stuff, but it's just not my film. And I admit that, it's not my film. I still prefer my superheroes, I prefer my action movies. Those are still the ones I'm going to go to. But I'm not afraid, or I will admit, when things are actually good. But for me personally, it's just not one I want to check out again and again. But you've sat through this video. What do you think of Avatar? Let me know down in the comments below. Am I totally wrong? Is it the most amazing movie ever? Am I off on my thoughts? But please, let's be nice in the comment section, because remember, all film is subjective, as people say, and we all can have our own opinions. If you love this movie, good for you. It's not for me. Or do you really hate it? Let me know down below why. Regardless, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And until our next retro review, remember, read what you love, enjoy what you love, and let's all work for a better fandom. I'll see you next time.